Hello, this is Group 3, and right now with us we have Natasha, Daisy, Lenneth, Manny, and myself, Brandon. We're going to be presenting about how global supply chains are currently being affected due to multiple worldwide disruptions. Now, all of these disruptions are interconnected and they play a role in affecting one another. Therefore, it's really important that we cover them all together. Currently, the main disturbance affecting the world right now is obviously the COVID 19 pandemic, which has been going on for over a year now. But there's also some other prominent factors and disturbances that have been taking place as well. During this presentation, we will be covering the extreme winter freeze that occurred in Texas recently, how the Suez Canal blockage affected trade, and how other ports are dealing with trade, what problems that are causing setbacks within the automotive industry, and the overall demand in plastics and how that overall affects the supply chain.
The Texas freeze. The winter freeze was in February 2021. This freeze costed many families and businesses up to billions of dollars worth of damages. There wasn't electricity for days, and pipes burst caused an upheaval of plastic demands. The freeze triggered mass blackouts that shuttered plants, many of which remained offline. Since the freeze, several of Dow's petrochemical plants in Texas were forced to shut down, and Mr. Unger Leger, the CFO and president of Dow, said they would be running at 80% by the end of March. The effects of the Texas freeze to supply chain were immediate. Businesses took a major hit and are still trying to recover over a month later. The effects of the winter freeze in February 2021 are still being affected to businesses and families now in 2021 of April.
It was reported that more than 40 cargo ships were left waiting to get into ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. In result, many U.S. importers were left with a significant amount of backlogs. Retailers are experiencing losses due to this inconvenience by having to pay air freight to make it possible for consumer goods to be delivered. Many companies are deciding to pay more for air cargo than having to wait, which can be a positive outlook, but our air cargo has many disadvantages, such as high costs, limited carrying capacity, and certain items are just not able to be shipped by air. Around a quarter of the ships waited more than 5 days to be delivered to customers in October and November of 2020. While ports are struggling to maintain order, many Americans that were not affected by the pandemic are continuing to spend on goods, and it is creating difficulties for ports to control this overwhelming shipping surge. Currently, the Suez Canal was blocked by a container ship that created a huge traffic jam. It took the rescue team around a week to resolve, and many ships had to suspend travel. In repercussion, shipping companies were left with extra costs that were not covered by insurance. Many industries, as I mentioned, are backed up, and this incident can take months to resolve. It is expected that prices in the US will rise. The supply chain is already under pressure from the pandemic and surge in buying. Many storage facilities are full and are currently experiencing staffing issues because of social distancing. In the upcoming months, it is expected for there to be supply chain disruptions that are unavoidable.
Another industry dealing with supply chain issues is the automotive industry. Both Toyota and Honda have recently stated they will momentarily halt production in their North American plants due to the supply chain woes. The issues within the industry supply chain can be attributed to many things. These things include shortage of petrochemicals, manufacturing as a result of the Texas freeze, port backlogs, and problems related to the current pandemic. Both manufacturers credit complications of their business flow with the combination of these disruptions. As a result of the petrochemical shortage, Toyota shut down its factory in Kentucky where cars like the Camry and Avalon sedans are being built and could possibly lead to more production cuts of its Toyota pickup truck, which is currently being built in Mexico. Many companies are scrambling to find raw materials required to cut losses as much as possible. General Motors, Ford, and Nissan have also reported similar production cuts due to the supply shortages. Asian car companies have not been left unaffected. Asian car makers mostly are having issues with jammed ports, being that they import most of their parts that are used here in the US factories. Because revenue is booked when cars are shipped from the plant to dealer, earnings have drastically been affected in a negative way. The long-term economic impact is currently unknown and will most likely get back to normal as soon as the economy recovers from these recent events.
The winter storm that hit Texas in February led to chemical plant shutdowns that are disrupting the global supply chain of plastic products. The world's largest petrochemical complexes are located along the Gulf of Mexico in the Texas region. A month later after the freeze, many of these plants are still offline, and analysts say it could be months before they are fully operational. Prices for polyethylene, polypropylene, and other chemical compounds used to make auto parts, computers, and many other plastic products have reached their highest levels in years in the US. This has resulted in an increased cost and delays for auto manufacturers, home builders, and other businesses, with impacts ultimately felt by consumers. Honda Motor Company and Toyota Motor Corporation will be halting productions at most of the US and Canadian car factories due to supply chain issues. These shortages also affect companies that build homes. John Sheeg, who was a vice president for supply chain service, said that he was being told by suppliers to expect shortages of everything from siding to adhesive insulation, thus causing delays and increasing costs for homebuyers. Kim Anders, a supply chain executive at the hospital buying group for Premier Inc., stated that there is a shortage of special plastic containers that hold used needles. This is partly due to the big demand from vaccinations. According to Hector Rivero, the president of the Texas Chemical Council, chemical plant startups are the most dangerous process at these plants. He goes on to say that necessary precautions are required at a major facility that's dealing with hazardous materials, extreme temperatures, and pressures. It may be months before the plastic shortage is able to stabilize, as many of these petrochemical plants are still trying to become fully operational.
With all of these disruptions taking place without a clear date on when they will end, it is apparent that the long-term economic effects will remain unclear and undetermined. However, what is certain is that the market will eventually stabilize given enough time. Therefore, Group 3 recommends following the opinion of market experts and waiting for the market to deal with itself. Some events such as the freeze and pandemic can't be solved through ordinary or quick means. These problems are ones that will be solved through time. In conclusion, the global supply chain market will continue to be affected by the multiple disruptions we've currently listed, with several disruptions nearly being recovered from, such as the Texas freeze. There are still major ones, such as COVID-19, that continue to cause the globe to yearn for normalcy. However, the end to these disruptions are on the way, and it's only a matter of time till everything recovers. Here's the source that we used for this presentation, and I want to thank you for your time.